Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Gary Blackwood. Welcome back to the vlog. Bad news, my intro is still in slow motion because I'm a whale that can't work the camera. So we got to get straight into the action. Sorry about that. I know you guys love the long intros. I'm here today at the lovely Commerce Casino in Los Angeles. I get myself in for 8:15 a.m. I hand the cashier $10,000 in cash in exchange for chips and head on over to my seat. The game looks pretty good for that time of day. $1,500 cap, but plenty of rebuys if we need them. Onto our first hand of the day, and I am in the big blind with Queen 10 offsuit. Action falls to the button, who limps in for $10. The small blind gets out of the way, and I decide my hand is strong enough to raise here. I make it $60 to go. The button is going to make the call. We go heads up to Jack 10-7 all spades. Pretty good start here. I've got a pair and a queen high flush draw. I do decide to check my hand though. Kind of happy to see her check it on back. To the turn, it is the 4 of spades. I make my flush and I decide to lead out for $60. My opponent thinks for a few seconds and then makes the call. I basically always have the best hand here. So when the offsuit 9 rolls off on the river, I continue to bet for value. I bet $175 and she snap calls. I turn my hand over. She sighs, she mucks. I'm pretty sure I see the 9 of spades flash as she does so. Pretty good start to the day here, winning my first pot in the first 15 minutes. Let's hope that is a sign of things to come. All right, not long later, I am in the hijack with pocket tens. The player from the previous hand is proving herself to be very loose but very passive. So I'm a little concerned when she raises under the gun to $30. I decide to just flat call with my tens in the hijack. The button calls as well. He's a reggy looking fella. And then the big blind, who is a very, very fun player, puts in the squeeze to $230. This is a massive squeeze. Under the gun gets out the way. I'm really not sure what to do here, but I decide to just go ahead and call here in position, see a flop. The button calls as well. Like I say, he's a regular looking fellow. We go 3 ways to the flop, which is Queen 10-8 rainbow. Absolute dream flop for me here, flopping middle set. And what's more, the squeezer is going to move all in on the flop. This is a dream spot for me. He shoved for like $1,300 into a pot of like 750. I tanked for about 15 seconds before announcing that I'm also all in. Unfortunately for me, the button doesn't have pocket eights. He gets out the way. I announce immediately that I have a set of tens. There is no running it twice here at the Commerce Casino. The turn card is a 9. I don't think he's ever going to have a jack in his range. And the river is a 4. And when he sees the run out, he sees my pocket tens, he sighs and mucks his hand. This is a huge pot coming my way after only 30 minutes of play. A bit of a questionable pre-flop call, but a really nice flop and a really nice result. I'm up over $2,000 for the day here after about 30 minutes or so. So happy I got out my bet at 7 a.m. to come and play cards. I was feeling a little mischievous after this hand and I sent out this tweet. I thought it was very obvious that I wasn't serious, but it got some amount of bites over the course of the day. In case anyone is wondering, it's completely satire. I meant to tip $10 and I, of course, did not ask for it. All right, a very, very quick seat change for me here. Nothing to do with the position or EV or anything like that. I'm just trying to get as close to the 2 seat or the 7 seat as possible. They're optimal for vlogging. Just a couple of minutes after moving seats, I pick up pocket tens again in the small blind. Early position is the guy that I've stacked in the last hand. He limps in for 10. The passive non-pro who's been in every hand so far raises to $75. There's a local legend reg on the button. He makes the call. I decide to just call in the small blind. It's a very, very big isolate. And sure enough, the limper folds. We go 3 ways to the flop, which is 8-8-7 rainbow. It's not the best, but it's certainly not the worst. We check it on over to the button, who bets out for $130. Nothing else for me to do here other than just call. The cutoff calls as well. I'm not too worried about that. As mentioned, she's a very, very loose goose. We go 3 ways to the turn, which is a 5 that brings a flush draw. We check to the button again. This time he bets for $340. The button is a very, very loose, very aggressive reg. I can for sure still have the best hand here. I'm more than happy to call the turn, and if we're heads up and he shoves the river, I can go ahead and call as well. Sure enough, I do make that call on the turn. Really don't love it when I see the cutoff call as well. Kind of done with the hand at this point. We go 3 ways to the river, which is a queen, and the cutoff now leads out for $1,000. I was for sure folding anyway versus this line, but after a long tank and a call from the button, I of course snapfold my hand. The cutoff turns over pocket sevens for a flop full house, and the button says that he had an 8, and I was in there with the worst hand, happily calling down. This is a little setback, but I'm still up $1,800 for the day. It's been a really fun day so far. Lots of quirky plays from all the players at the table. The game is very, very good so far. I'm for sure enjoying myself here in East Los Angeles. All right, next up is a fun one. I'm under the gun with ace queen of diamonds and raise it on up to $35. It's been a really loose table so far, so I'm very surprised to see it fold all the way around to the big blind. She's the lady who's played about 90% of pots so far. That's not an exaggeration. She defends, and we go heads up to the flop, which is ace king jack with two diamonds. I have got top pair, a gut shot, a flush draw, and a royal flush draw. With all that equity, I decide to c bet, but in hindsight, I go a little too small. I only bet out for $25. Sure enough, she does go ahead and make the call. Think I definitely missed a bit of value on the flop versus this player. To the turn, it's an offsuit 10. I make my straight, my opponent checks to me, and I bet out for $500. We're about 2k effective on the turn here. Before I talk about why I decided to bet so much, let's just quickly point out that she snap folds her hand, which is a bit disappointing. Now, I've spoken to lots of different players about this hand from a variety of backgrounds, live players, online players, all different types. And I really, really like my line. I like my size here. This player is very loose and very passive. She's unlikely to raise versus a small bet. So I don't want to bet small and try and induce her to raise with a straight and then re-raise. She's very likely to just call on the turn with a straight and then I miss out on a bunch of value. And she's super loose pre-flop as well. She's going to have a lot of queen X here that a lot of players won't have. I just want to get the maximum free roll that I can here. Unfortunately for me, she didn't have the straight. She snap folded her hand. But let me know in the comments what you think I should have done. Would you bet a normal size? Would you overbet slightly? Would you bet $500? Would you shove all in? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. All right, that last ace queen was a bit funky. Let's hope this ace queen is a bit more straightforward. I'm in middle position and raised to $35. The big blind is a Euro looking fella who makes the call. We go heads up to the flop, which is king jack 5 with two clubs. I decide to see bet my hand. I use a larger size on this texture. I bet $55. And my opponent makes the call. To the turn, it's an offsuit deuce. Nothing really changes, and I decide to bust out the overbet. I bet $240. My opponent thinks for a long, long time before making the call. We go to the river, which is an offsuit 8. He checks it on over to me again on the river, and I decide against bluffing. I wave the white flag, and he turns over queen jack offsuit for a second pair. A little frustrating to see him call the turn with that. I had actually put an Instagram story up complaining about all these damn euros coming in early into the commerce and ruining my action. Now, this guy in question actually follows me on Instagram. I didn't realize, and he delightfully slid into my DMs to let me know that he's actually Australian. That's a very, very good read from me. All right, 20 minutes later, I'm on the button with pocket nines. The European from Australia has raised to $35 in middle position. The loose passive lady is called. The local legend aggro reg is called. And I put in the squeeze to $175. Really happy to see that my only caller is the very loose, very passive lady. We go heads up to the flop, which is 10-7-3 with two hearts. She checks to me, and there's a lot of value to be had here, so I decide to see bet for $175. My opponent thinks for a few seconds and then makes the call. The turn is the 8 of spades, which gives me an open-ended straight draw, but there's now two flush draws on board. And what's more, my opponent leads into me for $325. I really don't love it. She is very loose, but she's relatively passive as well. I don't think she's the bluffing type. But still, with the straight draw, I decide to make the call, praying for some help on the river. But the river is the ace of hearts. It's an overcard to the board, and the front door flush gets there. My opponent bets again, this time for $500. It's a bit of a small bet. Any bigger and I would snap fold. But given it's a small bet, I start to think about it. I go deep into the tank, wondering what she could possibly have. I've got good blockers to the straight. I don't think she's going to take this line with a hand like two pair or a set. She's probably going to raise that on the flop. After a minute or so, I start talking to her. I ask her if she's bluffing, and she smirks, rolls her eyes, and looks away. This is an unbelievable live read given off. 2 seconds after this, I make the call, and she turns over 7-5 offsuit. I'm looking at the board. Is that straight? Is it two pair? Nope, it's just one pair. My nines are good, and I scoop in this really nice pot after some ridiculous poker by both players. This is a really nice pot. Really happy to use my live reads and pick off a bluff. As I'm stacking it up, though, I am involved again. If you think this last hand was ridiculous, just wait until you see this one. Mr. Euro Aussie is raised under the gun to $35. The lady is called. I'm in the cutoff with 10-8 of diamonds in call, as does the big blind. We go 4 ways to the flop, a very good looking 8-8 deuce rainbow. 3 of a kind for me. And when it checks to me, it's kind of hard for anyone to have anything. I want to let them catch up by turning top pair, so I make a bit of a sneaky decision to check back on the flop. The turn is the 6 of spades, flush draw now possible, and the big blind leads out for $60. He's a bit of a loose goose, so when it folds to me, I decide to raise versus this stab. I make it $260 to go. Really happy to see him not snap fold. He makes the call. To the river, it is the jack of spades, and now my opponent leads out for $500. This is a ridiculous run out, and given his line, I do something kind of crazy. I take 3 seconds before picking up my cards, showing them to the camera, and folding my hand. Look, there's no point wasting time. If you think you're beat, then you got to just go with your read and throw your hand away. That's exactly what I do here. I thought he had a better hand. I thought he'd backdoored a flush given his line, so I just folded my hand. It's some truly insane poker being played so far today. If I was a casual viewer of this vlog, I would for sure pause it and click the sub button. Guys, it takes 2 seconds and it helps me out a bunch, so if you're watching and you're enjoying the content, go ahead and click that sub button. Alright, time for some more non-game theory optimal poker here. The lady who's been involved in every pot so far is racking up her chips. She's in the small blind here and she's playing to her button. I'm under the gun with pocket queens and decide to raise to $50. Absolute predator that I am. As I'm raising to $50, the local legend aggro pro in the big blind laughs. He knows what's up, and I jokingly say to him, solve this. The only caller is the lady who's racking up, and the flop comes down ace 9-3 rainbow. She actually leads into me for $100, only for the local legend to laugh and say, solve that. Absolute banter here at 10:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. I, of course, make the call. We see an offsuit 7 hit the turn, and she leads again for $150. I make the call, praying that she's bluffing her ass off once more. To the river, it's another 9. She checks to me. I'm really happy to check it back. One more bluff for the roads. Nah, she's got ace 5 offsuit for top pair. My queens are no good. She was a really lovely lady, lots of fun to play with, and she's heading to the cashier with about 4 full racks. I really hope that she's not in for more than that and she's turned a profit. Speaking of profit, I'm up $1,750 for the day here and absolutely loving life. Alright, it's been a silly old day so far. Time for things to get even sillier. I'm in the cutoff with King Jack of clubs. Local aggro legend pro is raised to $40 in the hijack. I put in the re-raise to $130 and he makes the call. As we're going heads up to the flop, I ask him if he wants to show a card and he says yes. I tell him to pick one of my cards. He chooses the jack of clubs. I choose one of his cards. He shows the 9 of hearts. We go heads up to the flop, which is queen 10 deuce rainbow. Really good start for me here. I'm pretty sure he's got pocket 9s. So when he checks to me, I decide to check back and pray for a miracle 9 on the turn. Unfortunately, the turn is an offsuit 5. He checks to me and I decide to end the madness. I bet $175. He does fold and he shows me another 9. He asks if it was a good fold. I show him that he got bluffed. Well, kinda. I've got a lot of outs there. And I drag in yet another pot. It's been such a fun day so far today, and it's still so early in the day. But not long after this, something really interesting is going to happen. Another local legend aggro pro who runs a semi-private game in this casino comes over to my table, taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, we got a seat for you in the 10-20-40 if you want to play. I absolutely do want to play. So I rack up my chips as quickly as possible. I bid farewell to my table mates, super excited to finally play in this legendary 10-20-40 game.
Alright, so something interesting has just happened. There's like a semi-private 10-20-40 that runs with the Commerce, and I am here today, and they're going to let me play today, which is kind of cool. So I expected to be here all day playing 5-10 and maybe go to the Hustler, but I'm going to go check out this game. It's 10-20-40. I'll buy in for like 5k. I'm not allowed to film, so I'm going to have to get creative as if I'm playing a tournament, like take a picture of the table and stuff like that, but I'll make it work. I'll let you guys sweat the action with me. But yeah, up 1700 at 5-10. Going to head across now and play some 10-20-40. Let's do it.
All right, going to pause it here for the day, guys. I'm up $1,695 at this point. Going to make this a 2-parter episode, and by God, is the second part worth the wait. I'm going to be playing 10-20-40. It's going to be a lot of fun. Be sure to click the sub button so you don't miss it. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Take it easy.